David, to listen, my heart is heavy today. It's heavy because I'm looking at stories for which there is not a completion, in which there is not a sense that here is the story, I've got it, I'm ready to go, and I'm ready to tell you about what I have found out. There's this point in which you're working on a narrative, on a revelation, on a discovery, where you see things coming into view, you're gathering facts, you're seeing things, you're waiting for responses, and you are conscious of being near the moment where you might unburden your heart, unburden your ledger of the weight of the story untold, the narrative yet unrevealed. And so I have this sense of being charged with delivering news and analysis for you, my listener, here on the David Tula Show, and feeling that I need to speak, but I'm not quite ready. And so there's this conflict in my mind about this these sort of unready stories. I think perhaps the one that occurred Friday that I mentioned to you now kind of suggests the direction of the flow of narrative. And by the way, the number is 800-8949, 800-8949. I do want to address your situation and hear about your dilemma, your local economy dilemma, your business problem. Maybe you have some response to things you've seen in the press over the past couple of days, or maybe you have a question about Nuganomics.com, the website for the man who matters here. That is to say, Nuganomics.com, our sponsor. And I have a lengthy discussion most recently about Operation Rescue. It's now called Operation Save America. And the question is about the doctrine of interposition. And it comes to your attention at Nuganomics because there are interrogatories given as against criminal defendants. Rusty Lee is one of them. Rusty Lee Thomas is one of them. And this is the group that blocks abortion clinics to save the lives of unborn boys and girls. And the prosecutor is asking in discovery in questions about the reasons and the doctrines that these Christian people are following. One of them is the doctrine of interposition, where copying the Lord Jesus, interposing himself between a righteous and wrathful, just God and the sinner, right? Christ interposes himself between those destined for destruction eternally and temporally, and saves them. So that's the doctrine of interposition, which has Christ as the model, and something you may have heard about it at church if you are a Christian going to church. And then also the prosecutors want to hear about the word rescue. What does rescue mean? Where does it come from? What is your basis for saying you have a duty to rescue people? And then also they're asking about standing in the gap. What does that mean in the context of ending abortion? And they're trying to find out what happened in front of a clinic on May 13, 2017. And these men who are responding to this interrogatory, these questions from the prosecutor, are citing, for example, Jeremiah 5:1, run to and fro through the streets of Jerusalem, see now and know, and seek in her open places if you can find there a man, if there is anyone who executes judgment, who seek the truth, and I will pardon her. And then also this idea of the hedge, the lesser magistrate as a hedge. And we know that these questions are potentially important because I'm bringing them up, and have brought them up for some time, and reminding officials such as Bill Knowles, the leading vote getter in Hamilton County, I think in the last go around Tuesday, or was it Thursday, with 45,000 votes, the biggest vote getter of all the candidates in the county. Bill Knowles, a right Christian man, got that number, and yet rejected the lesser magistrate doctrine, rejected the idea that even a clerk, even a record keeper, a man who issues licenses for people getting married, even he can act as a hedge around the county to keep out what is called gay marriage under statute. And so that is what you'll find at Nuganomics.com this morning. The question of a nation having abandoned God, and the federal government by statute and by opinion, right? Opinion of its high court, codifying evil as law. And that is something that truly has happened a great deal. And the question for us here in Chattanooga and Helena County is, well, we see these things there, and we have these sort of mudslides against, you might say, against God directly, and then of course against the things that God makes and God defends, such as family. These are mudslides against those institutions, the family itself, marriage itself, that would do away with them entirely if those who brought about the changes in the courts, petitioners to courts and judges, could have their way. We would have a remaking of society. Well, that's what some people fantasize about. Of course, it won't happen. It can't really happen, even though if you took to the logical conclusion their argument, there might not be any more any recognition of marriage or any recognition of authority in the family. Let's say if mom and dad over a child, the progressive argument that sort of codifies and corporatizes the family, right? Turning families into corporations and individuals into corporate members. That can go a long way and has corroded a lot, I would say, in our liberties in the past 45 or 50 years. This is David Toulis, and we're at 92.7 FM and 95.3 FM HD4. So the Unburdened Story touches on something about local economy. That is our theme here. And local economy and the free market, we can see in the question of bail bonds. Now, I this comes up because I was talking with a woman over the weekend. Her name is Constance Giles, about bail bonds. And this is David Toulis, and you're live on the David Toulis Show. What is on your mind?
This is Constance Giles.
Constance, yes, thank you for calling. I have a question for you. My listener wants to know about your encounter. We're going to hear more. We're not going to hear the details right now, but you have a very interesting case in Whitfield County, and you were arrested, Constance. And I'd like you to tell my listener about your encounter with the magistrate in Georgia and the bond that was set after your arrest for the charges. I think was obstruction of process, willful obstruction of process. In that accusation against you. How was it decided what your bond was to be set at, Constance Giles?
According to the processing department inside the jail, they said that it was up to the judge with how much my bond would be. Yes, I was charged with willful obstruction, and they set it at $750 property bond, cash bond, or bail bondsman.
And was that based on a list, or what is your understanding of how that figure was arrived at, Constance?
It wasn't explained to me, but I called a few bail bondsmen in the area and asked, and they informed me that in the state of Georgia, it is strictly up to the judge. Whatever he decides is what the person has to pay.
And what are the considerations, to your knowledge, that the judge has to have in mind when he evaluates you, the defendant, whether or not you go straight to the cage, or whether you're given freedom under a payment guaranteeing your return? What kind of things did he consider in setting that, or maybe I should ask, what considerations should he have thought about, Constance?
Well, I feel that the only thing that was taken under consideration was what the officers in Whitfield County put on their report. And it was their word against mine, and it didn't matter.
Well, so you're saying that the bond was set based on the alleged crime and not upon the person, your person, and your connection with Whitfield County and your town?
That is correct.
Well, that seems to be not quite right, because the bond is not supposed to be punitive, right? I mean, what's the purpose of a bond, Constance?
I mean, I would assume that, if you resign in a town and you're a business owner and you have connections and you help the community and you do things, that they would take that type of stuff in consideration. I'm not an out-towner. I'm resident of Whitfield County.
Right. And
So,
how long have you been in your county?
I have lived here since 2013 in this particular county.
And you have a business. Are members of your family living in Whitfield County as well, Constance?
That is correct.
And how many family members do you have in the county?
I have 7 daughters and 3 grandsons, and my husband and my son-in-laws.
Okay. And did the magistrate take into account, let's say, prior criminal record in your case?
I do not believe so.
Okay. Do you have a prior criminal record, Constance?
Nothing that I've been convicted of.
Okay. So the question is, what we're trying to establish here is that at least on the Tennessee side of the border, there are considerations that the magistrate or judge has to have in evaluating whether you should be allowed to go free without payment. That's the question on your own recognizance.
Right.
Did you ask to be freed on your own recognizance? You did.
I did. Whenever I was arrested, I asked them if I could OR myself out, and they said no. That the judge has made the decision. I guess that was already made prior to my transportation, being transported to the Whitfield County Jail.
So that was a decision made prior to your appearance.
Correct. Exactly.
And you're thinking it may have been based on some kind of formula or document based on the charge filed against you. Is that right?
Exactly. That is correct.
Well, it seems like if a judge has a hearing and has someone before him or her, if it's a woman, that person should be able to make a case for maybe a lower level bond than one initially proposed, or as you say, own recognition, release. Right. And you're indicating that did not happen. You was just told, okay, it's $750 cash or property bond.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
That was the only option I had.
All right. Well, listen, thanks very much for filling us in, Constance. We'll talk to you soon about your case. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
That's Constance Giles, and we're going to hear about her case, one that has been brought to my attention. And listen, I really appreciate you, my listener, bringing to me stories about misuse of law. There is a great deal to be said for laws, and in Georgia and in Tennessee, and we are at 800-8949, 800-8949. That's the number that Constance just dialed, Constance Giles, and we'll hear about her arrest under the Georgia offenses against public administration provisions that kind of give, well, it's the provisions in Georgia law that make the police and the sheriff's department employees who wear the uniforms and the armor plate and the guns and take the oath, right? Take the oath to uphold the Constitution, make them better than us, right? The good people don't live just in Washington and don't operate just in the capitals of Atlanta, Nashville, and Washington. They are here. The good people are here, and I think sometimes they may hold that high office, and they're good people only because they have a particular sharp attitude and a particular hard frame of mind as against you and people like you, the members of the public who are treated peremptorily, summarily, as one upon whom a state actor executes his will. Right? You are the subject or the defendant or the accused or the soon to be accused or the subject. Right? You are the subject, and we are lining ourselves up to accuse you of something. We just have to get our act together and have you say enough about your situation. Raise your voice just a decibel too high, and we are going to get you. And that is what Constance Giles faces in her case, July 15, in Whitfield County, just south of the border. And I just want to mention to you, my listener, here at 800-8949, 800-8949, that I appreciate your letting me hear about these things, because after all, we are the station where you report, and the world decides. Love your neighbor and buy local. And it's 800-8949. Now, Tennessee statute on obstruction, if you will, or resisting is much better than that of Georgia. Georgia has a very open-ended and extraordinarily vague rule that ensnared Constance Giles, who was fending off two strangers who were in her house, strange men in a house in which there were 7 females. Her husband was in the shower. There was also a son-in-law on the property when 2 men came upon the property and into the house. These were repo men. So repo men in the age of society and culture choked with debt, right? We are a debt-choked society. Repo man encounters are more frequent. Think of the Avery Gray case with her daughter 14 dragged from a car in front of the public buildings downtown. The Georgia statute is I don't have the actual code online. I'm looking at Justicia, so there may be some dating problem with the statute because that's not guaranteed to be current. It says that you are involved in obstruction when a person knowingly and willfully. Now, listen how vague this is. Okay, this makes the officer a god in Georgia who knowingly and willfully obstructs or hinders any law enforcement officer in the lawful discharge of his official duties is guilty of a misdemeanor. So if you don't open a door immediately for an officer who's coming into your house without a warrant, right, that itself could be obstructing or hindering. So hindering is any small thing that's not itself illegal in the context of the officer's approach upon you or against you or into your property or into your business or into your situation where other people may be in this officer's view for apprehension. Your act to hinder or obstruct, you didn't get out of the way, right? The officer had to push you aside to get to somebody else. Well, you, now that he's thinking about it, will be open to obstructing. So that it is an open-ended obstruct or hinder any law enforcement officer in the lawful discharge of his official duties. So this makes the officer effectively God. Now, no one has the power to do this, to create a crime because of not moving fast enough or in some way resisting either with commentary, questions, demands, requests for a warrant. Think about that. You're demanding the officer show you a warrant. He may have the warrant in his pocket, or in the case of Constance Giles, her pocket. But there wasn't. It was a female officer, 18 years on the force, and she always does things her way. She says very peremptory. Peremptory means simply summarily and briefly and quickly, right? Without really having to think about it. She's done it so many times. She's arrested so many people that she can do things sort of on the fly and know that she's right? She's always knows that she's right. Now, in Georgia, the statute that goes on to say that the misdemeanor version of obstruction is what I read to you, willfully, knowingly, and willfully obstructs and hinders. So your defense is, of course, in the phrase knowingly and willfully. Now, the officer has to prove state of mind, and that's going to be difficult. So you have to show your defense is before the jury. Get a jury trial, right? To show that there was nothing willful about it. It was just incidental. The hindering and obstructing that you did was incidental and not intending to violate the statute and not intending to prevent, right? You weren't intending to prevent the lawful discharge of his official duties or is guilty of a misdemeanor. You're not intending to prevent that person, but you are part of the scene, right? In that encounter with the officer. And you can't say, well, I can't just disappear from the storyline because I'm here. This is my house or this is my business or my car. And this isn't an unreasonable charge. But this charge is leveled against people to harass them. It's a harassing charge and often is negotiated away if you plead guilty to something else. So what they're going to want from Constance Giles, who was seemingly falsely arrested in her own house after calling 911, right? Constance called 911 maybe foolishly, and ended up getting arrested for obstruction by this female officer, a very high-handed female officer, a very wise and courageous person, as you can see on the video. And the good thing about her case is that there were multiple cameras running, and Constance has authority to get all video and all audio to determine the holes and even fabrications in the arrest report. You can see that arrest report, by the way, at the great censor platform nowadays. That's Facebook. You can see us on Facebook. The two-page report with great detail, seemingly quite a bit of fiction. This business owner and mother says, Constance Giles. Now, there's a felony obstruction, and when you are feloniously obstructing, you are offering or doing violence to a person while knowingly and willfully resisting, obstructing, or opposing a law enforcement officer. Okay, so they're using or offering violence. The Tennessee statute's a lot better. David Tools, Nuke Radio, 800-8949. Call me, 800-8949. What's happened to you?
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
A stolen tractor trailer rams a patrol car and officers open fire. This according to the Ringgold PD.